This is a short lesson on prime and composite numbers. I want you to set up your page this way. We're going to talk about how to identify a number as prime or composite. Before I get started on this, I want to give you a couple of exceptions, and I'm going to put it up at the top really big. 1 and 0 are neither prime or composite. This is really important. If you see 1 or 0 and a question that says prime or composite, it's not going to be either one. So 1 and 0 do not fall under this. After that, every whole number after 1, so starting at 2, is either prime or composite. This is very black and white. It's either one or the other, okay? And I'm going to show you how to tell the difference between them. So first of all, I'm going to talk about prime numbers. So prime numbers are whole numbers, so it can't be like 1/2 or 3/4. A whole number that has only 2 factors. And we talked about factors yesterday. It has only 2 factors. And I'm going to give you an example of that right now. So if you look at a number like 5 and think about what multiplication facts can get me to 5. The only way to 5 is 5 times 1. It only has 1 factor pair, okay? So 1 factor pair, and it's prime. All prime numbers are odd except for one exception. So you're going to have some odd numbers that are composite, but with prime numbers, 2, the number 2 is the only even prime. So if you see a number, and my marker's not working very well, I apologize. If you see a number, even if it's really big, like 1,734, because this number ends in a 4, it is even, and it is not prime. So that's really important. So even numbers belong on this side of the wall. Got it? So sometimes you're going to have really big numbers that you're not going to really know. Oh, it's odd. I don't know. It could be prime. It might not be. There's one trick that I always tell kids to do to figure out if it's prime or composite. I'm going to move that up so you can see my notes. So I've got 2 is the only even prime number here. Prime numbers are all odd except for this friend 2. And if you're not 100% sure if it's prime and it's an odd number, I want you to try to divide by 3, 5, 7, and 9. If those don't work, then it's definitely prime. 5s are easy because if the number ends in a 0 or a 5, it's divisible by 5. And 3, 7, and 9, sometimes you have to write it out. But these are my go-to. If I'm looking at a number that's larger, like 173, I'm going to try dividing by these numbers here to see if it's really a prime number or not. Composite numbers are a little easier because there's a whole lot more of them. So with composite numbers, they are a whole number that has more than 2 factors. So a whole number with more than two factors, it's going to be a whole lot easier to find these than these. So be really careful with identifying the prime. I like to use the number 24 as an example because 24 has a lot of factor pairs. I can take the road of 1 times 24. I could go down 2 times 12. I could take 3 times 8. Or get to 24 with 6 times 4. And we talked about these yesterday when we did our factor trees. If you think about it, composite numbers are composed. And composed is another word for made of many factor pairs. Now, sometimes it'll only be 2. That's okay, but more than 1. If you look at other examples, I have some kids get confused and they're like, oh, I'm going to say that 27 is prime because it's odd. Don't do that. Some are odd numbers, okay? And if you think about 27, I can do 1 times 27, which is the easiest one to find, but I can also get there by doing 3 times 9. If you can list another factor pair for that number, that means that it's composite. So be careful. Don't just look at odd numbers and think they're all going to be prime. Some are odd that fall over on this composite side. So you really have to know your facts. If you're dealing with a bigger number, like 127, you're going to go back to my original rule. I'm going to try 3, 5, 7, and 9. Actually, I won't try 5 because it doesn't end in a 0 or 5. But if I have a big number, these are the guys I'm going to try before I decide if it's really prime or composite. And don't forget 1 and 0 are neither 1 because they don't have 2 factors. 1 times 1 is 1. It only has 1 factor, and so does 0. So I hope that helps. Good luck, guys.